In today's video, we are breaking down Xavier Worthy's first regular season performance. We're going to take a look at his profile, look at a couple of his highlight plays, break down what we saw on film, then we're going to take a look at his snap share and target share, as well as the target share and snap shares of everybody in the Chiefs offense, at least from week 1. Then we're going to think about the depth chart and what we might be able to project for Xavier Worthy the rest of the season. Xavier Worthy is 5'11", 165. He was picked 28th overall. The Chiefs traded up to get him. He's 21 years and 3 months old, so still a relatively young player. Obviously, he's a rookie. He is an early declare, so we do like that. His freshman season in college was by far the best of his collegiate career. His counting stats went down, but he is still a complete receiver. People think that he's just this pure deep threat that's incapable of running routes and doesn't have as much positional versatility. He really does have positional versatility. You're going to see in the highlights. When we look at his profile, his 4.21 40-yard dash was obviously an NFL record, so his 40-yard dash speed is 100th percentile. Now, because he's only 165 pounds, his speed score of 102.2 is only in the 77th percentile, despite the fact that it's literally the fastest time ever recorded. But considering he's 165 pounds, having a 77th percentile speed score is still crazy. His 135.2 burst score is in the 96th percentile. He didn't do the agility drills. He didn't need to. He already knew he was going to be a first-round pick after that 40-yard dash. And his 10.28 catch radius is in the 91st percentile. Xavier Worthy's first NFL touch was a 21-yard rushing touchdown on a reverse. He was targeted 3 times last night. He ended up with 2 receptions for 47 yards and a touchdown. So in total, he had 2 receptions, 47 yards and a touchdown, and 1 carry for 21 yards and a touchdown. In a half-point PPR, he got you 19.8 fantasy points, and in a full-point PPR, he got you 20.8. Coming out, we were all a little bit unsure in week 1 what his role would be. And now, while his total usage could definitely be better, I think just about any reasonable person is overly satisfied with what we saw in week 1 in terms of his fantasy output. The first play that we're going to be breaking down is Xavier Worthy's end around. It was his first NFL touch. It was nice to see some creativity by the Chiefs. Not that we historically should be concerned about Andy Reid's play calling or utilization of players. He's very, very adept at that. So once again, his first touch is an end around. He uses his blocking very, very wisely. He gets skinny in between them and the Ravens defenders on the backside. He's barely touched right before he gets to the end zone. And the good news is every bit of his 4.21 track speed and combine breaking speed translates on the NFL field. The next play we're breaking down is the drag route run by Xavier Worthy. So one thing I really liked is that they didn't use him only on one side of the field, and they mixed it up between having him as the lone receiver and also using him in bunch formations. So in this play, he was not on the line of scrimmage. He was on the outside. And so it allowed him to have a free release. And with his speed, no one in man coverage is remotely going to be able to cover him. At least just about any cornerback in the NFL is just not fast enough to keep up with them. And I really like that they're not just using him vertically. They're also using him horizontally. Andy Reid, oh, bless him, and his amazing play calling. Now, I'm a Ravens fan, so I definitely wasn't too happy about the outcome of this game. But as a fantasy owner and just a fan of the NFL in general, it's very nice to see players like Xavier Worthy being utilized correctly. Most teams would just pigeonhole players like this to a purely vertical role in the offense, and Andy Reid is going to maximize his talents. The next play we're discussing is the receiving touchdown by Xavier Worthy. So on this play, he's the lone receiver on the right side of the field. He's running a 9 route. The Ravens, I think, they were either in cover 2 or cover 3, but judging by the fact that Marlon Humphrey thought that he had safety help, as is evidenced by the fact that, yes, he tried to press him a little bit and get him off of his route, he let him go right by him. He definitely thought he had safety help. I think that it doesn't really matter where the miscommunication was. The safety was playing as though it was cover 3, which is why he wasn't behind Marlon Humphrey. And Marlon Humphrey was in cover 2, because he let him go right by him and was trying to lurk underneath. But little to his knowledge, he didn't have any safety help at all. So it's a free touchdown. And one thing I really like here is that Patrick Mahomes used his eyes to keep the safety in the middle of the field while using his peripheral vision to notice that Xavier Worthy was all alone. It's very, very rare if you have miscommunication on defense that Patrick Mahomes isn't going to notice and take advantage of it. And it was a free touchdown because of it. The final play we'll be reviewing here is a crossing route run by Xavier Worthy that did end up falling incomplete, but a couple of things to like. Once again, they had him in a condensed formation. This time he was on the line of scrimmage on the left side of the field. They did have a dummy motion by Travis Kelce to get the defense distracted on the left side of the field from the Chiefs' perspective. Then they had Xavier Worthy running a crosser. So Xavier Worthy was the first read on this play. You can tell Mahomes knew exactly where he was going with the ball. It did end up falling incomplete. To his credit, Ardarius Washington made a wonderful play on the ball, but also to Xavier Worthy's credit, he batted the ball away. And one thing to like about that is going to gain Mahomes' trust, knowing that even if he doesn't give you the best ball in any given play, or even if the defense just covers it perfectly, you are going to make every effort to make sure that the defense doesn't end up with the ball. I really like what I saw from Xavier Worthy in this game, and plays like this are going to get him more targets in the future. When we compare the two main receivers in terms of production, we have Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy. So Xavier Worthy did end up with more fantasy points. He did have 2 touchdowns, but he also did that on the back of 3 total touches, whereas Rashee Rice had 7. Now, it is to be expected in general that your short area target in Rashee Rice is going to have more targets than your more so vertical asset playmaker in the passing game in Xavier Worthy. When we look at their snap percentage, Rashee Rice ended up with a 78% snap share and Xavier Worthy ended up with a 63% snap share. And when we look at their targets, Rashee Rice had 9 and Xavier Worthy had 3. Now, Xavier Worthy did have 1 extra rush attempt, so you would count it 3 total touches to 7 for Rashee Rice. And when we look at their yards per target, Xavier Worthy had 15.67 and Rashee Rice had 11.44. That's what we're going to see a lot in this offense is Rashee Rice running a lot of flat routes, drag routes, and slants, a lot of times from the slot, and Xavier Worthy being utilized all over the field and running more so crossing routes, drag routes, and 9 routes. Xavier Worthy is obviously going to be more of the vertical asset in the passing game, and Rashee Rice is going to be more so the short area conversion kind of a target. One thing to note here, though, is Rashee Rice was by far the most targeted player this game specifically. It could have been matchup dependent. I did notice that they were trying to get Rashee Rice on Roquan Smith, and as much as I love Roquan Smith, it is very challenging for linebackers to cover receivers. He is one of the better cover linebackers there is, but asking a linebacker once again to cover a wide receiver is a very challenging task, and the Ravens were no match. They spammed Rashee Rice over and over and over again. But it is interesting to see that Rashee Rice was the most targeted player in this game. When we look at the final stat lines, Patrick Mahomes was 20 of 28, 291 passing yards, a touchdown, and a pick. He did have a couple of drops, so his completion percentage should have been a little bit higher. Nonetheless, for the most part, it was a very efficient game from Mahomes. When we look at the receiving stats, it's interesting that Rashee Rice was, besides Travis Kelce, 3 times as targeted as any other player in the offense this last night. Now, Xavier Worthy was the most explosive playmaker on a per-touch basis. His 21-yard scamper and 2 receptions for 47 yards and a touchdown indicate that, as well as his long gain of 35 yards was the longest of anybody last night. Another interesting thing is that they were running a decent amount of 12 personnel, so Noah Gray and Travis Kelce on the field. It's very strange to see that Noah Gray had almost as many targets as Kelce, especially because after this last playoff game, he was toasting Kyle Hamilton, one of the better cover safeties, even in man coverage in the NFL. So that may indicate that Travis Kelce potentially has lost another step, or it may have just been matchup dependent. And it'll also be interesting to see when Hollywood Brown is back if they run a lot more 11 personnel. But nonetheless, it is very encouraging to see that Xavier Worthy was given schemed touches and given very important looks. That crossing route in the red zone, if it was a little bit better of a ball and a little bit worse coverage, that was a touchdown to Xavier Worthy. It was very nice to see that Patrick Mahomes had eyes in the back of his head and used his vision and his eyes to manipulate the safety into staying in the middle of the field while he used his peripheral vision to see that Xavier Worthy was running free. Overall, very encouraging. Now, I also charted out the snap share and target share of every player in this offense. It's kind of funny to see Patrick Mahomes here because he ended up catching his own batted pass and ended up with a 3.57% target share. When we look at the snap share of the wide receivers, Rashee Rice's 78% snap share did end up being the most among receivers. Xavier Worthy's 63% was second among wide receivers. Then Justin Watson and Juju split the rest of the receiver snaps. When we look at the tight end utilization, Travis Kelce was only on the field 89% of the time, and Noah Gray was at 54%. So once again, they did run a very, very good amount of 12 personnel this game. Kind of strange. Isaiah Pacheco had an 80% snap share, and Samaje Perine was easily the second back in this offense, even after just being signed, and he had a 15% snap share. When we look at target shares, Rashee Rice's 32.14% was easily tops among the receiving core, anyone in the receiving core. Xavier Worthy did have 10.71, the same as Noah Gray, even Pacheco. And Travis Kelce, while it shouldn't be surprising if he isn't the most targeted player, that he was the second most, it is interesting to see that Rashee Rice had nearly a third of the total targets, and Travis Kelce was the second most involved player at a little bit under 15%. And so what we can conclude here is that even on a limited basis in terms of his touches and targets, Xavier Worthy is absolutely electric, especially to end up leading the receiving core in fantasy points when only touching the ball 3 total times. That's a sign of good things to come if he's able to have a little bit more of an increased usage in this offense. When we look at the depth chart, Hollywood Brown didn't play. Now, the Chiefs once again did run a lot of 12 personnel. I suspect that's because Hollywood was out. I think that when Hollywood comes back, they're going to run a lot more 11 personnel. They'll probably have Hollywood generally at X. I'd imagine Xavier Worthy generally as a flanker, and they'll have Rashee Rice in the slot. And I expect, obviously, Travis Kelce to be the main tight end. I think that's their ideal lineup with Isaiah Pacheco as the running back. But Andy Reid is going to mix it up. That's part of why he's such a good play caller. He makes it very hard to know what to expect. The point of me saying this is that Hollywood Brown is more than likely going to receive more targets right away than Xavier Worthy. I'd imagine Travis Kelce's in general going to be targeted more, and probably Rashee Rice, especially after having a 32% target share. And while it is noteworthy that on limited touches, Xavier Worthy was explosive and had 2 touchdowns, the volume on a week-to-week basis probably isn't going to be the best, so he's going to have to be really, really efficient to be a consistent fantasy scorer. And in my opinion, he's probably the 4th option in general behind Hollywood, Kelce, and Rashee Rice. But nonetheless, the utilization all over the field, vertically and horizontally, on the line of scrimmage, off the line of scrimmage, and bunch sets, is very, very encouraging. And Xavier Worthy absolutely made the most of his plays in which he caught the ball or ran the ball. And even on that crossing route, when he made sure that the defender, Ardarius Washington, wasn't able to pick off that pass, those are all things that are going to get him more playing time. And as a first-round pick, you definitely know that they're going to want to get him involved. It's just, as long as his snap share isn't in the 70s to 80s, and his target share is around 10%, as long as that continues, we do need to understand that not every game is likely to be quite as efficient as this game was. In summation, I was thoroughly impressed with Xavier Worthy tonight. I like how they used him horizontally and vertically with drag routes, crossing routes, 9 routes. Even in the run game on an end around, very, very creative, and he was incredibly efficient with his touches, and especially with that batted ball in the end zone, plays like that are going to get him more playing time, and obviously with them trading up in the first round to draft him, they intend to use him. But what do you think? Were you impressed with his play tonight? Was there something that you would have liked to see more of that he didn't do? Let me know below in the comment section. Also, make sure to check out my rankings videos for quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. And please like and subscribe. It lets me know that you like this content and want to see more of it in the future. With that being said, have a great weekend. Make sure your starting lineups are correct and enjoy the first week of NFL football. Football is back.